So I am joined today again, second time here as a guest on our Facebook Live with Sabrina, who is a short-term rental Airbnb expert here in the Denver area. So, Sabrina, for those that didn't get a chance to dive in for our last interview, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and how you really started dipping into short-term rentals.
Yeah. So my name is Sabrina Kalman. I'm with a company called B&B Excellent, which is my own company. And I really came to short-term rental from a couple of different angles. I am a former long-term property manager. And my company had sort of started picking up some furnished rentals. And at that point in time, I'd seen like a real need in the market. This was probably 6 years ago, a real need in the market for these shorter term stays here in Denver. And with that, I also have a little carriage house on the back of my house here in West Wash Park. And so it was just sort of the perfect storm to become involved in short-term rental. What I did was I took my little carriage house, I remodeled it, converted that from a long-term rental to a short-term rental. And being a property manager, just heavily involved in the industry, I was getting a ton of questions from clients and from realtors that I work with regarding short-term rental at the time. And, you know, there was a lot of buzz out there of converting long-term rentals to short-term rentals. And it was just sort of a natural transition for me to start educating people on what I know about short-term rental, because we've really sort of become an expert in the market. I've been doing it for 6 years now. I teach CE credited courses to real estate agents. We manage properties specifically in Denver Metro. And I just really know these, the ins and outs of Airbnb, the algorithms, the rules and regulations, and how to be really successful with it. So
yeah,
and got into it.
And today we're going to kind of focus in the Denver area because that's your primary area of service.
Mm-hmm.
But the one caveat I think I want to enter with this is the cities and the municipalities are all doing things differently as it comes to rules and regulations. So what we're going to talk about will probably be hyper specific to Denver, probably some generalities that work everywhere. But if you're getting into short-term rentals, make sure that you're following the rules and regulations, because you definitely don't want to get into hot water there.
Yeah, absolutely. They are different. The rules and regulations are different city by city and county by county. And I would add that they're ever changing still, because everyone is sort of evolving their rules and regulations as time goes on.
Yeah. And we got a couple of questions, asked ahead of time on our Facebook
Mm-hmm.
page. So we'll get to those. But those of you that are watching, if you've got questions that you'd like Sabrina to answer, go ahead and type them into the chat box, and we'll get those questions answered. So today, really, Sabrina wanted to share the numbers behind short-term rentals, because there's some powerful math as it comes to an investment property. Now, in Denver, and again, correct me if I'm wrong or if this has changed, to do a short-term rental like an Airbnb or a VRBO, it has to be my primary residence, correct? Oh, did we lose Sabrina?
Matt, can you hear me?
Oh, I got you back.
Was that me? My internet, it must be acting up. I apologize.
That's okay. Did you catch the question, or did I disappear on you?
You disappeared on me as well.
Okay. So was saying that, really correct me if I'm wrong or this is updated, but to do a short-term rental in Denver, it must be my primary residence.
That's correct. So actually, right now it needs to be your primary residence. That's been the rule since 2017. They actually just proposed a Type 2 license in the last short-term rental advisory committee meeting, which would allow for investors to have one investment property that's a short-term rental. Now, this is just very new. It's just proposed. The consensus behind this proposal was, well, at least it's something that we should talk about a little bit more. So, what's really neat is this could be changing down the line. I would say give it 9 to 12 months and we might have more news for you guys.
Yeah. So at the time of this interview, that information's correct.
Yes.
May or may not be, depending on when somebody watches this on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's ever changing. And what's interesting is Arvada has just established short-term rental rules, and they are allowing, this is one of the first cities here in the Denver metro, they're allowing investors to have up to 3 short-term rentals in Arvada. But what they've done is they've limited the number of days you can rent it out on a short-term basis to 240 days. So essentially 1/3 out of the year, you've got to rent the place out for more than 30 days at a time. So once you start doing the math, it may or may not make sense to go short-term versus long-term in Arvada.
Yeah, what I like about it being the primary residence is I get an opportunity to buy under owner occupied rates, right? So it's a lower down payment requirement, the interest rate's better. And if I travel for work a lot, if I, like to travel for pleasure a lot, or, I've got a second home that maybe I want to stay at, or I have a carriage home, a mother-in-law suite, something in the back of my home, a basement that can create its own entry and exit. This makes it a great way to reduce my cost of ownership and create some wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can say, for us having the carriage house as a short-term rental, it's just been so great. We made back the investment we put into remodeling it within the first year of renting it out, which is, I mean, that's a huge return on investment.
Yeah.
And if I look at my numbers renting that carriage house out on a long-term basis, it's just a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 500 square foot carriage house. That would rent out maybe $1,200 to $1,300 a month on a long-term basis. Renting that out through Airbnb, I net on average right around $2,500 a month. So that's about double. Now, that's huge when it's your primary residence. That can cover a large portion of your mortgage. And one thing to be aware of is when you're going to buy property, you can't use that expected income to qualify. So you should be able to qualify on your own, but it can certainly allow for a lot more flexibility in your life. Now, the story's a little bit different if it's not your primary residence. Those numbers end up looking very different. Matt, is now a good time to maybe share my screen and go over that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get access here to share the screen. So as you click the button, I'll add it here.
Okay.
So we wanted to go over some specific numbers. What would it look like owning a short-term rental if we were to buy one? So
yeah,
let me know when you're ready and I'll.
Perfect. I am ready.
Okay. It's not popping up here yet.
Here we go. Oh, I got it. Is it, am I sharing here? No, not yet.
There we go. It's popping up.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah, so I wanted to share a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to share, they have this company is actually local, airdna.co, but they are great if you are looking at investing in short-term rental. They have data from all over the country. They can help you analyze the best areas to buy rentals and things like that. But I just wanted to show you a quick example. So this property is an active listing here in Denver, 945 Julian. It's in a great location for an Airbnb. And what you can do with this software is they have a tool called the Rentalizer, where you can just pop in the address. This is a unique property in that it's 4 bedrooms, 1 bath. So only 1 bathroom. So I said, 4 guests makes sense with only 1 bathroom. And then it will give you an annual estimate on how much money you can earn from that property renting it out on a short-term basis. And so this $68,000 or really $69,000 if you round up is what you would earn over the course of a year. And that's with a 64% occupancy rate on this home. And then what they've got for you is they've got, more detailed financial calculator where you can sort of pop in your numbers, which is really nice. You can pop in what you would expect for the management fee, what you would expect for cleaning fees. And the one thing that I would really emphasize when you're looking at sort of analyzing a short-term investment is anytime you get the estimated revenue for the year on a property, that includes the cleaning fee you collect from the guests. So on a 4-bedroom property, you're collecting probably around $150 per stay for cleaning from the guests. But you're also paying your cleaners every time they clean that property. And when we're looking at short-term stays, you could easily have 100 cleans in that stay. So that's, $15,000 right there that you lop off of this top line revenue right here. And your operating expenses can be quite high. And then, as a hands-off investor, short-term rental investment it's just a very active investment. You have a turnover every 3.5 days. I always tell people, once you're a short-term investor, you're not just a landlord, you're in the hospitality business. So you go from like a very passive income to a very active type income. So managers are responding to guests 24/7. They're sort of catering to their every need. Pricing on a short-term rental is very dynamic. So you'll price differently, but on a daily basis, very similar to a hotel, and it's very seasonal. So short-term rental, this annual estimate, they give you an annual estimate for a reason. It's because every month your income is going to fluctuate greatly, and it will be very seasonal for you. So if you're the kind of person who sort of needs a steady income and needs to be able to predict what they're receiving every month, short-term rental might not be a great fit for you.
Personality-wise, you might prefer the long-term rental.
Yeah,
so.
you might give yourself a lot of anxiety trying to get a certain amount each month. But this tool here is just really great to help you understand what that looks like, and so you can see the revenue forecast, how much better you do, per month in the summertime versus like January and February are the slow months here in Denver. So you're looking at making about 3 times more in July. And you can see that your rates are just fluctuating quite a bit. You go in January and February. February is the lowest rate at $200 a night. And then you get higher rates at almost $400 a night. Your occupancy varies like crazy. It's for someone who sort of has the stomach for that up and down, and they understand that that's completely normal, and that is completely normal in a short-term rental. And then what's nice about this software is that it gives you some properties to compare to, other comparables in the area, and things like that. So I really do like this software. It's a great tool for people, but really the thing to understand with short-term rental is that it's not always a more profitable rental than a long-term rental. And it really depends on where your property is located, the highest and best use for that property. So if you're in, of course, a ski in, ski out condo in Breckenridge, of course, a short-term rental is the way to go. But if you're looking at, a property in Arvada or Denver or one of the suburbs here where you are allowed to do it, and you intend to be sort of a passive investor, and you're hiring out, your management and your cleaning and all of that fun stuff, it may or may not make sense for you. So just, this is a brief chart with some back of the napkin math for you guys. Once again, if you're renting out a property on Airbnb, that top line revenue you see, it includes your cleaning fee that you're collecting. You're easily paying out, $10,000 in cleaning. Say it's $100 per clean, 100 cleans per year. You're paying that out to your cleaners. With a short-term rental, you're paying all of the utilities. You're paying for the cable, the internet. You're having someone maintain the yard and the snow removal for you. So you have all of those costs. And then, of course, management on a short-term rental can be high. It's anywhere between 25% and 55%, depending on where your property is located. So in a metro area, 25% is very normal. If you're up in the mountains, 35 to 55% is quite normal. So once you lop off 25%, what you take home on a short-term rental, if you're a hands-off investor, is about 50% of what your expected top line revenue is. So once you take that and you compare it to what you might earn on a long-term rental, sometimes what we find in Denver is that most of the time that turns out to be a wash for most people, which is why I just really encourage the primary residence short-term rental, because what happens is all of these costs that really sort of dig into your profit, you have anyway on your primary residence. So on my carriage house, I already pay for cable and internet. I already ensure that my yard looks nice and that my snow is removed, and I'm here on the property to maintain it. I don't need a full service property manager when it's my primary residence. So I don't have that large management fee cost of anywhere between 25 and 55%. And believe me, the managers, they earn these fees. They work really hard. But if it's on your primary residence, you just don't have that necessity. So it can be much more profitable, because everything that you make above and beyond what you would on a long-term rental is almost all of it's pure gravy for you.
Yeah, right. If you like cleaning, and I certainly don't, but if you like cleaning, you can absolutely have that as an expense to you, right? So charge the cleaning fee, and I clean it myself, and I'm detailed and get that cleaned. There's more profit right back to my bottom line.
Yeah, it's so true. And, we do manage some properties here in Denver Metro. We do a virtual management style because that's what works for the primary residence. So it ends up being, quite profitable for our clients to do it that way. But I have one client who cleans her own property, and she just keeps the cleaning fee. But it's a commitment. So every time, she goes on vacation or goes out of town, we end up blocking off days for her, rather than, she just prefers to do that rather than have someone else come in and clean it.
Yeah, nobody cleans your house the way you clean your house. Or, for me, again, I don't love doing it. So, anybody cleaning my house turns out better than I do.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We've always hired a cleaner on ours, and it's just, for us, it's a cost of business, and it makes sense.
Yeah. So now it's not just, as we look at a property, right? The outside consumer, right? And I would look at it the way that I use it for the short-term rentals when I go on vacation. This is not just a platform for vacation destinations.
Correct. Yeah. Airbnb is really the platform that brought short-term rental to your neighborhood. We never really had that. We've always had vacation rentals through Vrbo. Vrbo has pretty much bought up all of the platforms out there and is somehow affiliated with all of the short-term platforms out there these days. So Vrbo's really the main competition, but they really target two different markets. Airbnb is for that short-term rental in your neighborhood.
Yeah, so my home doesn't need to be in a location where it's going to be a lot of tourism for it to work. It can absolutely be very profitable, right? I look at that $68,000 number, and on a $400,000 house, that's a pretty good return, or a bump to my wage that I get from my employer.
Yeah, most definitely. So if you're traveling for work and you're renting that out while you're out, or you rent out a room in the house, it's a great way to supplement that.
Yeah, and there are those options, right, where you don't have to completely vacate, right? You can rent out rooms in a home as well. There's a number of different options that you can do creatively, right, to turn this into a profitable venture for you.
Yeah, most definitely.
So as you're helping investors analyze what makes a good short-term rental, what are some things, if I were to explore this and I want to buy a primary residence, but I want to have the option as a short-term rental, what are maybe 2 or 3 things that I would look for or consider when it comes to the short-term rental?
Yeah, so if you're looking to buy a property, you plan to live in it, and you'd like to maybe rent it out on a short-term basis, I personally, I love the idea of like a mother-in-law suite or a guest suite. We have a lot of clients who rent out walkout basements that are completely split off from their house. I think when you're looking at renting out a space in your own home, you you have some things to consider, for your personal lifestyle and things like that. Like, do you really want to share any of your space? Number one, do you want noise in your basement is something to consider as well. But it works out very well. And so for people who have like full basement suites, you know, it's a great way to go, and it's a great way to supplement the income. The other thing that you can do with a basement suite, with short-term rental, it's super flexible. So block it off when you need it for your own family. I have clients that have the only washer and dryer in the house in the basement. So we limit the stays to no more than 6 days and keep a day in between each guest so that they can go downstairs and use their own laundry. So there's a lot of flexibility with it, but people really appreciate the private space. They certainly appreciate a self check-in these days. What we find is we have a very new trend in traveling. I like to call it the workcation. Almost everybody who's coming to stay in Denver right now is also working remotely at the same time. So ensuring that you have great Wi-Fi is very important. Maybe even a desk space is important. People certainly appreciate some sort of ability to park off street if you've got that. At my house, we have street parking for our guests, but we have a guest parking permit that we're able to provide them with, so they can park right in front of our house. So different things become important, and you kind of just have to look at it from the traveler's eyes. What do you enjoy when you're traveling? Most people do these days, they prefer a private space. Airbnbs do compete directly with hotels. And so you want a space that is really comfortable. It's nice. It feels clean. And it looks stylish.
Yeah. Yeah. So fantastic, right? It's a number of different factors to that, right? And just deciding what is it that fits your lifestyle? What can you commit to if it's a route that you want to go? Now, again, short-term rentals is not for everybody. Neither is long-term rentals, and that's okay. But for those watching that are curious about it, the resources that a subscription service like AirDNA gives, and somebody with the expert like Sabrina has, that it can be a powerful tool when supplementing your income through a short-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perfect. So now you've shared with us before, you were in that hybrid. We're doing long-term rental, property management, now completely into short-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you want to share about how people can get in touch with you if they've got specific questions, or they have a short-term rental, maybe managed by somebody else they're not happy with, or just have some more questions?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I do want to mention is that really my company our focus is on educating people and helping people be successful with their short-term rentals. So yes, we do manage properties in the Denver metro area, but what my real focus on is really educating clients with that. So we've got a couple of how-to Airbnb courses coming out. We have a very basic course coming out, and then we have an intensive that we're running at the end of February. It's 2 days, and it will give you all of the secrets on how we keep our properties so well occupied at such high revenue levels for all of our clients. So if you're someone who's looking to sort of level up your Airbnb game, that would be a great class for you. And then we do consulting as well. So we're glad to answer any questions. We can help you get started and set up your listing, because there's a ton of nuances to the Airbnb platform, and then give you guidance on how to manage that on your own thereafter as well. So really, we have a very flexible service. We're just here to sort of educate and help you get the most out of your properties. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to email me at sabrina@bnbexcellent.com, and that's BNB like Airbnb, and then excellent with a T.com. And then after this Facebook Live is over, I'll be sure to put my contact information in the comments, and then I'll put the information for the link to airdna.co in there as well for you guys.
Perfect. So that's Sabrina@bnbexcellent.com.
Yes.
All right, let's add that in. Should be there scrolling on the bottom for those that are watching. As long as I typed it incorrect.
You did. You did. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Good. So be on the lookout for those courses if you want some more information. Any final parting words that you have for the guests and the folks that are watching?
The only other thing I would say is, we've spoken a lot about Denver here, but please, don't hesitate to reach out regarding other areas of town. I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the rules and regulations throughout Denver Metro as well as the mountain areas. So glad to sort of point people in the right direction for that.
That's fantastic, Sabrina. I really appreciate. Oh, wait, before we go, I did promise, right? We had a couple of questions
Yes, that's
that we
right.
would get answered. So let me find the questions, right? So here we go. All right, so we had a question. I've been researching rules and regulations, different cities and counties. So touching on that and implications of accessory dwellings where they are allowed. So we touched on the rules and regulations constantly changing. The accessory dwellings, very much, I believe the question coming like your carriage house.
Yeah. So the accessory dwellings are a huge topic, and I'm actually we'll be releasing a CE credited ADU course in late February as well. But what we're seeing is this trend in a lot of cities where they are opening up areas for building of ADU rentals. Or ADU properties. And it depends on where you're located, whether or not you're able to use that ADU as a short-term rental. In Denver, it's very much allowed at this point in time. So any ADU would be a candidate for a short-term rental. Up in Boulder, they've updated some of the ADU rules and regulations where they're allowing people to build more, but all of the new ones have to be long-term rentals. Once again, the ADU subject is it's complicated, just like the Airbnb rules and regulations. It will be different depending on the zone of your property and your city and what they're allowing people to do with the ADUs. But it's certainly a hot topic.
Yeah, great. So the other question is the different fees associated with the different platforms that a homeowner should be aware of.
Yeah, so every listing platform will have its own set of fees, and a lot of them have sort of different options. But with Airbnb, the most popular one is that Airbnb will charge the host 3% of the booking, and then they also have a service fee that they charge the guest. And Airbnb isn't super transparent about this service fee that they charge the guest, but it's anywhere between 10 and 15% of the booking.
Okay.
And then on Vrbo, Vrbo used to have a couple of different options, but I think what they're doing for new users is it's a straight percentage, and I believe it's an 8% fee of the booking.
Okay. Any other kind of maybe I don't want to call them hidden fees, right? But are there other kind of quirky fees that pop up from the platforms that somebody should be aware of, or is that kind of really it? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward with the booking fees. What you certainly want to be aware of is the lodging tax in your area and how that is collected and remitted. Here in Denver, Airbnb makes it very easy. Airbnb automatically collects and remits all of those lodging taxes for the host. But if you are in an area where that's not done, I have received questions from, I think Aspen is one of the areas where it gets super complicated. You have to be careful about how you put your taxes into your Vrbo and your Airbnb settings to ensure you collect those separately from the guest.
Okay. Yeah, so again, very area specifics around the nuance and how it works.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, Sabrina, I enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to future conversations as we talk more about short-term rentals and maybe some different strategies around it. So, but again, thank you so much. Any final parting words around short-term rentals?
No, I mean, obviously I love short-term rental and I think they're great. And I encourage you, if you're interested, just look into it a little bit more and see if it makes sense for you.
Yeah. Email Sabrina and get some questions answered. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabrina. Appreciate your time, and we'll chat with you again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.